Hey, Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh of Innerskilled, and today I have Manju Aggarwal with me. Did I
Manuj.
get that?
Manuj.
Manuj, oh my goodness. So
Yes.
I've got a history of slaughtering names
No
by
worries, no worries.
accident here. Manuj, what's going on today?
Good, very good. Excited to be here.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining. I reached out to me through a pod matching service, and I was, it's a really big topic now. AI, it's huge. Everybody's talking about it. And you also have kind of a spiritual background too, which I think is really interesting in this space. And the interview I did earlier today, we got into intellectual property and how an IP economy could be possible through his work. But yeah, why don't you tell people who you are, what kind of work you do?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Manuj Aggarwal. I have been in technology for about 30 years, helped build many startups, building their technology products, also worked with giants like Microsoft, IBM, T-Mobile, Pearson Education. I have 4 patents in AI. So I started working with AI around 2005, and I've created 4 patented technologies. One of the projects or the patented technology that we developed was created for higher education students to help them finish their degree programs rather than drop out, because 30% of the students drop out. And that program actually got mentioned by Obama and Bill Gates. And in my journey, as you said, like I've had, obviously a lot of good insights, a lot of great fun building technology, but also really going deep into the human consciousness, understanding how our mind works, neuroscience behind it, and also the ancient wisdom. We were talking about Buddhism, and I grew up as a Hindu, so a lot of Eastern philosophies, a lot of other philosophies from around the world I incorporate into my world.
Well, right on. I mentioned before the show that I was going to not grill you so much. That's not the right word to use, but maybe play kind of devil's advocate. And I know it's so easy to default to our negativity bias sometimes, but I really feel this is a huge topic that the ethical thing has to really, and I think most people in the space that I would even talk to begin with really have to drill into the ethics and talk about this. So I think I wanted to start on more of a broader scale of what some people talk about, which I see. It would just maybe it's a little bit dystopian, maybe a little bit darker, but I still want to address it. That some people talk about transhumanism and technocracy, where everything from you're going to need a digital ID to even be able to access the internet. Everything will be tracked and traced. Data will be harvested, and so the more data you get, I mean, this is already happening, the more valuable it will be in the future when more and more can be extracted from it, more and more things can be sold, more and more control could be possible for that. And the people who want to micromanage pretty much every single little movement of life. Now, on one hand, I can see where, it could have a benefit, for people kind of behaving themselves, enforcing laws and stuff. But we talk about things like pre-crime and people wanting to merge their consciousness with machines and
Mhm.
gain super intelligence, immortality, through these huge basic data centers and things they're building. So yeah, how do you view all this? Weigh in on I'm sure you're familiar with transhumanism and technocracy and some of these ideas here.
Yeah. See, the thing is that it's very interesting. Whenever a new technology wave comes in, humans react very similarly because we don't know. We don't like uncertainty. We don't like change. It's unsettling to us. We are talking about, for example, the Buddha, right? If you read his story, he was enlightened and he wanted to share. In a way, he's a scientist. He's a neuroscientist. He wanted to share his science and technology with the world, but nobody believed him initially. Even his closest disciples, I think the 5 men, didn't believe him. Right. So the idea is not to think about any technology as, oh, somebody higher up is taking control, because technology is kind of universal. Think about taking control of it yourself. So in some ways, um, if let's say talk about digital ID, for example, right? Digital ID. And one thing I will preface this by saying, you're absolutely right on one thing, which is data is the new wealth. Okay, so remember this. So when oil was found in Saudi Arabia in the 1940s, the people who owned the oil wells became filthy rich, but also people who actually built the refineries, the distribution pipelines, the gas stations, the automobiles, all of this actually created a huge part of the economy. And people who can tap into that can actually start to benefit from it. So collecting data is the new form of creating value. Collecting data and using AI to understand the data patterns. What I say is AI is the data is the new gold, and AI or data is the new oil, and AI is the new engine. So when you start to put all this together, you as an individual, no matter where you are, whether you are a student, whether you are doing a job, whether you are a CEO of a company, whether you are a business person, you can use these technologies to start collecting data about the kind of work you are interested in, the kind of humans you are interested in, the kind of community do you want to build around you, and using that data in an ethical way to really understand who that human is and empathize with them and their requirements and their um, you know priorities, and using these technologies come up with innovative solutions for them that have not existed so far, right? And when you look at it from that point of view, you are looking at much more powerful human being inside you, rather than saying, oh, the big boys or the big brother is here to get me or whatever. That is the way of the world, by the way. That has never changed. That has never changed. But people who actually see the opportunity and they see i can be I can be taking ownership of my life here, they are the ones who transform the world. You can go back as far in history as possible. Technology is here to enable those human beings. This is the first time now. This additionally, I will add, before any before AI, any other technology that you wanted to adopt, it needed resources, money, people to hire, land, machines, what have you, right? But this is the first technology in human history that doesn't need anything other than you and your thinking. Okay, and I mean, if you want to go fancy, maybe $20 a month, you know, um, because there are two most precious commodities we have as humans, and if you can solve this simple puzzle for yourself, everything opens up. You have two most precious commodities: time and intelligence. You cannot produce time no matter how wealthy you are. You cannot produce intelligence, you know. But now, with this intelligence, you can enhance your intelligence. When you enhance your intelligence, you you get your time back, right?
I see these points. Yeah, they're all very valid. I just want to some things we may be missing here is the infrastructure. Okay, um, now I'm not anti AI. I use the agentic AI that I've been using. It's been very helpful. I mean, the vast or all the time consuming kind of media creation things and so many different things. It saves so much time and it's adequate. So yeah, and then I just use the general agents too and things like this. So yeah, I use it myself. So I'm not like a luddite when it comes to this. I just so the thing here, I want to just, if I may, the Buddha story. You're close. From what I remember, is yeah, on his way to talk to these five ascetics that he used to practice with. First, they asked him, what kind of being he was, and basically he said, I'm not even human. I'm awake, and it kind of just blew the guy's mind. So he's like, oh, maybe I should not say that or approach it that way, because so anyway, he went to the five ascetics, and basically they thought he was, weak because he,
Yeah, yeah.
took the
Consume meals.
food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. But they saw that there was something about him, his aura, his glow, that they would at least make him a seat and
Mhm,
hear what he
mhm,
had to say.
mhm,
You know what I
mhm.
mean? So, and then didn't I think one gain stream entry upon hearing right away the first thing. So That's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
I would
yeah.
say it a little bit instead of didn't believe him. But yeah, they thought he was a little bit weak for doing what he did, I guess at first, but then they gave him a chance. So back to the infrastructure though. Okay, who owns the oil? Who owns the guns that are backing up and the wars that are backing up? The whole world basically to be on the petrodollar. That's a huge thing that is kind of swept under the rug a lot. And the other thing is, who owns the automobiles? So yes, when I sit down in front of a computer and use AI for free, I don't really think about a lot of this stuff and what's behind. And some of the huge data centers being built, and I think some of the land they're clearing to do that, and this race for super intelligence. So going maybe a little bit old school back to our natural human consciousness, our natural abilities. I'm not saying don't augment, but I want to amplify the point you said about it all depends on the intentionality behind it and who's in charge and control of how it can be used, how it can't be used, what kind of self governance is involved in it, what kind of regulation, and then yeah, basically I think the ownership of the infrastructure, and then who's in charge and what's being enforced, what people are allowed to do and not do, if it can be more. Whoever I think owns the infrastructure and has the most access to resource. And I'm not totally against people with wealth. A lot of people make their wealth very legitimately, do a lot of good in the world with a lot of wealth, but we have bad actors too, just like you're saying, in any walk of life. So I just wanted to add these extra points here before we go on to the next thing.
Sure, sure, sure. Would you Do you want me to respond to it, like in terms of ownership and infrastructure and everything?
Yeah, if you'd like to say, how would
Sure,
you
sure.
address that? Yeah.
See, once again, this is not new. Infrastructure ownership is always part of of society. Again, if we do talk about if we do talk about Buddhism as well, right? For example, who owns the knowledge? Who came up with that knowledge? Who was in charge of distributing that knowledge? How to distribute that knowledge? How to organize the sangha? How to organize the monastery? There was some structure behind it, isn't it? Now,
Yes, but I wouldn't say ownership. That's a whole nother thing. Really, nothing can ever be owned at the end of the
sure,
day when we look at it like that.
sure,
But we're
yeah,
talking about traditional
yeah.
society and the way things are
So,
structured now.
so now what happens is when something like in the modern world is invented, yes, a lot of money is poured into it, but there is nothing stopping from anybody of creating a parallel technology, which is inevitable. Inevitable is going to happen, which is going to be free, which is going to be open source now, and it will somehow have a different uh, way of enforcing rules, censorship, and things like that. In fact, I can confidently say that every organization, every human being, every government, local, regional, national, is going to have their own AI. Okay, and they will have complete control over how it behaves, how it acts, and whatnot. Now, some people can again say, "Oh, wow! I mean, that's even worse." But um, we can keep arguing about better or worse. The idea is whether you want to participate in this or you want to stand on the sidelines. That is the only decision you want to make, right? And in terms of one thing you mentioned about transhumanism and things of that nature, merging consciousness, um, you'll be surprised to know perhaps I do that work, but not in a way that that people understand that I'm uploading the consciousness and becoming immortal and whatnot. There is a way to use AI to go inwards, to actually understand your consciousness, it to get access to that meditative point of state of mind, uh, when you actually meditate in a monastery or meditate regardless, and you start to develop that self-awareness. If you use this technology in a good way, to really understand who you are as a human and connect with other humans at that level. So it all depends on the perspective and what the media is kind of like saying without truly understanding exactly what they are talking about. Secondly, um, AI is a double-edged sword, as you said. Like every headline passes through multiple algorithms to figure out which headline is actually going to get the most clicks. So if I talk to a journalist, they could use exact words that I'm saying, and say sensationalize it to the nth degree. That's what their job is.
These are really good points. I guess what what I'm wondering about now is once it hits the internet, I guess you have a really good understanding of technology. It really depends. There's a possibility that somebody can intercept it and use it. I'm thinking about like the intelligence agencies, and even though they say it might be decentralized and like sectioned into state by state basis, if it's on the internet, if as time goes by, and of course in the data storage, the amount of possibility for it to be hacked and used. But again, it's nothing new. There's always bad actors. It all depends on intentionality. The one thing that happens a lot with new technology, I feel, is it's rolled out as benevolent. And it is, a lot of people have benefited so much from this now. But then what tends to happen, it seems, is it becomes normalized, and then gradually something else is, so it's like, oh, no big deal. They're doing this and this and this. And then all of a sudden the whole can of worms opens, and I don't really know any way to stop this. And this happens in other areas of life too. We look at the medical space. A lot of new technologies are really helpful, but then you know they're kind of co-opted and used. So this is why I think the ultimate answer to this is self-responsibility and an ethical framework individually, because we can't really control other people at the end of the day. The only thing we could do is take responsibility and stick to our ethical principles. It's a practice too, in Buddhism. It's non-harming, and everything's based on non-harming. Not everybody's going to be able to do that, but yeah. So, and then I guess talk about the social control system that some people might say, because we have China's version. In the States, I think it's a more soft one, where we have credit scores and social media, right? So people, depending on what you say on social media, can affect certain things in life, but it's not as cut and dry, I think, as the Chinese system, as far as I know. And the same way with credit scores, like if you have bad credit, then you're not going to be able to have access to certain things that involve money, right away. But some people are thinking it's going to be way more technocratic than that and controlled. But yeah, I don't know. How do you see these things?
Mm. Okay, so let me quickly add one more thing about the previous point about bad actors and everything. So every technology, as you said, like every technology, every system, it doesn't even need to be technology. Like medicine as a practice, which is ancient, can harm. I mean, take fire for example. You can make it make your food or burn down a home. Now, again, when we talk about spiritual teachings, the universe is made of light and dark. You cannot have one without the other. So if you get rid of the dark, light cannot exist. So it is designed, the universe is designed that bad actors will come up with the problems, and the good actors will solve those problems, and in that doing, create, move humanity forward. If that was not the case, we will still be living in the caves right now, right?
Yeah, this is the law of polarity, right?
Correct.
And so we're
Exactly.
subject to that right now, or this
Yeah.
realm that we're in, at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
Exactly. So now let's talk about social control and things of that nature. So once again, okay, this is, I'm going to preface this by saying what I'm going to share with you is these are just facts. These are not me trying to put somebody down or criticize anybody. This year in June, I was invited to speak at the Mensa Foundation. So Mensa is an organization that sort of conducts IQ research. They are the entry criteria for anybody to enter Mensa is they have to be among the top 2% high IQ. So 140 or so at least. So they are all geniuses. So I went there and I found out there that most geniuses, first of all, are misunderstood and they are very depressed. Second most important thing about what I found was that the average IQ of humanity is 90. So think about it this way: like 4 billion people on this planet have an IQ of 90, which is close to around like a teenager. All right. Now, in order to move the world forward, you need to have certain rules and regulations. As a parent, for example, if you have a teenager, you need to tell them, hey, do this, don't do this, and so on and so forth. And you may have some sort of rules for them. Hey, be home by 10, otherwise it's going to be unsafe for you, you know. And now, as they grow up, you have to let go of the control, and you have to let them live their life. So when you say, social controls and things of that nature, that exist from uh, historical perspective. you know Again, no offense to anybody, but for example, the temples in Hinduism, the churches in Christianity, these are ways of, you can, if you want to use terminology, to infuse a certain belief system in people, right? To infuse a certain belief system in people. The medium through which it happens, it could be through books, it could be through sermons, it could be through technology. And as technology develops, the medium becomes more and more powerful. You and I, we are able to talk to each other because the internet exists. Otherwise, we would be writing letters to each other, right?
No, these are really great points. Yeah, and yeah, I can see it both ways. It's just, and I do agree that because of the level of consciousness where we're unfortunately we are way behind where I feel what would be helpful to everything as a whole. And I don't really have any good answers. You're not going to get everybody to do deep inner work and spiritual practice. I really don't know if some of the AI answers are the way either, but this is the reality that's coming. We're already here.
Yeah. So
Like you
I'll,
said, it's just a
yeah, yeah.
different flavor of the same thing in a
So
way, if you
I'll
put it that
I'll
way.
share this with you as well, that you bring up. Most people don't want to do the inner work, but they want the results. The interesting part is they all want the results of that work. Okay. Now, let me blow your mind. The same technology they are fearing is a very, very, very powerful way to do that inner work without a lot of hard work, because humans want the results without the hard work. That is a universal desire. And with technology always is geared towards making you do less. Okay. So if you use it properly, you can actually, I will venture out to say, eventually reach a state of enlightenment through AI.
I don't know if I want to touch this one right now because I don't feel totally equipped to get into a talk right now when I haven't really contemplated this enough. Again, I can see pros and cons to this. What is there to say about this for now, though? Yeah, the cat's kind of got my tongue on this one. Well, I think the one thing to say is it's just like kind of any organized religion. I think if people aren't doing, it's a good starting place. Let's just say that, because if people aren't doing anything to kind of better themselves, better the society, be responsible, and get into deeper, more fundamental things about this life, whatever this is, then it's a good starting point. Everything's in place already to start. So to me, that's better than nothing to start off with. But I think eventually one's faith needs to be tested and either go deeper in that faith or then move on to something that's even um, more beneficial for oneself and for others, and especially in the long term. Now, we can get into more spiritual aspects of this and more really far out metaphysical things, like maybe it's beyond the scope of this conversation. Like some people are already talking about how in the ancient past, I mean, like things that like basically seers and sages and psychics have to go into to see that far way before recorded history and talk about different interplanetary, it gets pretty crazy for some to talk about all these different types of AIs. And we talk about really long, fast cycles of time that in world systems ending and recreating and going on and on and on. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to get into that right now, but these are all, I mean, it can go really deep, so um, So to bring it back down to more practical things, you did mention the educational space. Now, let me see if I can flesh this out in somewhat coherence. Trying to think if I heard this on like Whitney Webb, who site, I think it's called Unlimited Hangout. So she's a really deep investigative journalist that has done a lot of work, I think exposing a lot of stuff. Um, but from what I understand, where people want to push some of the educational space is something like a financial product. Basically, they want to test and identify young people early on to what they're good at, and then kind of project their pathways into the future, and then people can make, is this right, some kind of financial product, basically betting on their success and outcome, because then they will be able to predict how well they'll do in the future and how much money they can make certain sectors and areas. And then people can speculate on this on markets or something, because if they're you're taking a human and turning them into a financial product, basically to be bought and sold. I mean, we could argue that people work paycheck to paycheck and they're bonded in certain ways too, or something like that. But like, are you familiar with this kind of notion of what I'm talking about here, of where this
Yeah.
is going? And then also people who are maybe not invalid, but then people can offset, their company. I don't know, like a carbon credit almost, where the less fortunate, then they can invest in them as a kind of environmental social governance type thing, where they can actually, even though they make it in you know um, the productive everyday world, being a
Mhm, mhm.
productive robot, basically, shouldn't say that, but so yeah, I think talk about this, since I am in a library right now.
Yeah.
What you
You
make of
know,
this?
the interesting thing is, when we move through history, the labels change, the concepts change, the way that we talk about things change. But this is all true for entire humanity, history of humanity. So, modern education system was basically invented to feed industrial engine. Before that, pretty much everybody, 99.9% of the humanity, their title was field worker. That's it. That's all you did. You created food for the entire history of humanity, and you worked pretty much all your waking hours putting food on the table. And then when the machines took over, they're like, oh, okay, so we need people who understand physics, we need people who understand mathematics, now we need accounting, we need this. Okay, you become this, you become this, you become this, you become this, right? And even before that, like, when we talk about the kings, queens, they raised armies. Okay, this is a special type of a soldier, you're going to be trained in this, and blah blah blah, right? So specialization and all that is nothing new. And projecting into the future is nothing new. And speculation is nothing new. This is nothing new. It's just the labels are changed. And the only way out, the only way out is, as you said, take self responsibility. Now, the 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 key is, people need to flip their view on technology, is that technology is the only way to take self responsibility. If you do not use technology, then imagine your life. How will that be? Yes, you can go off grid, you can live off the grid, and you can stay, and if that's the life you want, that gives your soul purpose, good for you. That is that. At the end of the day, you really need to find out what lights up your soul. And if the world that is built around you, it doesn't light up your soul, then you have the agency to build your own world. And technology is that. Even if you go off grid, at the end of the day, you will need to use certain technologies to actually allow that to happen.
Well, that's right. And they're using, where I'm saying, a battery in a system that manages that, and they've got an electric car that they can both charge with their thing, and then also charge the car and charge their also. And so, yeah, you're right. And I'm not a Luddite. I was actually a really early adopter of like Apple stuff, and was a huge tech person back in the day. I'm just wondering though if this is kind of going faster and faster,
Absolutely.
um, just because it's legal and normalized, to me, doesn't make it right either. I'm not necessarily passing judgment saying this is wrong. I just want to be not overly cautious, but because the rate of change, I think, is what we're talking about here. Why this might maybe be different, I don't know. But the like Moore's law and processing power, it's increased, but this is, I think, almost beyond exponential. So I just want to this is why I'm spending so much time kind of going on the ethical side, because it's here, it's happening, whether we want it to or not. So I think this is one of the most important things, because I see myself more of a hybrid, of not getting too enmeshed and entrenched. Because what I found is, even though I'm more productive and more efficient, then I think, well, I can just take on more stuff. So at the end of the day, it balances out for me a little bit, because I have a kind of a project mind. I
Mhm.
like having a lot of different things to check off my list and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I do
yeah,
find myself even just spending almost the same amount of time. I am doing more, but sometimes more is better, sometimes
yeah,
not.
yeah.
But so this is, yeah, I was just wondering about this one as well.
Yeah. See, the thing is, like, it's again your personal choice. When you free up your time, all technology is designed to free up our time. As I said earlier, that time is the most precious commodity, right? So all technology is designed to give us our time. Your car is designed to get you there faster, or whatever. So now what you do with that time again is your self responsibility. If you want to go inwards, use that time to go inwards. Now let's again bring up Buddhism, because we are both passionate about it. In Buddhism, there's a concept of 31 planes of existence. So we are on the fourth plane, right? Now, as a species, we are destined to go on to the next plane, right? And if you chart a long-term history of evolution, any species, humans included, that is how evolution works. It's an exponential curve. It is an exponential curve. Now we are living in this time, whether we call ourselves lucky or unlucky, but yes, we are going through a massive change right now, massive exponential change. But imagine imagine a birth of a child. For 9 months, it's nurturing, but then within a few hours it goes through a very painful exponential change, and then we call it birth. Okay, so growth and pain, they are interlinked. So when you experience pain, you grow. But if you learn how to experience that pain and transform it, I can tell you, it is going to be painful. I can tell you that right now. As this technology takes over the world, it is going to be painful, but it will depend upon us, the good actors, or the governments, or what have you, to really understand how to roll this out and really empower the masses to use it, so that the transition is painless. But but the end result is that higher level of existence, that higher level of thinking.
Yes, I would agree with that. Like I said earlier, it comes back to who's in charge of most of the power behind it, most of the control, and what their intentions are.
Not really, not really.
You
I will
don't think
disagree.
so?
No, no,
Well,
no,
you're
no. I'll tell you why.
okay.
I'm
So,
in. I'm. Yeah, yeah.
well,
Let me.
I see that you can break away. Please do, and then I want to come
Yeah,
back to the planes of
yeah, yeah.
existence real quick.
So I'm talking to people right at the top of OpenAI or Anthropic, and they are good human beings, first of all, but they are very logical, very scientific. Most of them don't understand the the concepts that we are talking about here. Okay, about inner journey, about all of this. They are just building the technology that makes logical sense to them, but they don't know how to control it. Literally, I can tell you, they have no idea how to control it. Okay, it is just unfolding through them. It's unfolding through them. And now what we do with that is up to an individual or a group of individuals, right? So it's like, humans always settle around a water body, fresh water body, because they need water to drink. Then they figured out, oh, you know what, like, we could lay down a pipeline, filter the water, and then you can live anywhere. But still people choose to live in concentrated cities and whatnot, right? So same thing here, that these data centers, these AI kind of like organizations are going to supply the raw AI to people, and it's up to a person to drink unfiltered AI, or they say, you know what, like this is a useful thing, I want to filter it, I want to be healthy, I want to actually elevate myself. It's up to them.
And I agree at least on the surface level and in everyday life, but we're talking about kind of the low IQ. And I'll just say this: those in power usually are in secret, because if they can keep their activities secret, then they have kind of more power. So what goes on behind the scenes, the huge infrastructure of classification in the whole world now, there's so much classified, we don't even know. I mean, trillions and trillions and trillions. And this is how they maintain power. A lot of the, I would say, and then we look at through culture, right? So a lot of, I would say, humanity is programmed. Sorry, these kids are they're having
It's
fun.
okay. Yeah.
They're kind of programmed through culture, right? You see things, cool people that you think is cool, and you want to emulate them, or these are the trends, and people are kind of influenced in these ways. So again, it's a very complex thing, and I don't really know how to address it. Some of the secrecy needs to be there. I agree. Of course, we don't want people with like nuclear launch codes. I mean, that's ridiculous. But some of the things we don't even know that needs to be classified, and the people that move in the shadows, and the control in their agendas too. Not to be like paranoid or overly parapolitical here, but I just think it's hard to really make assessments on these things that are kind of locked behind closed doors. And there's it could be nothing, right? But it could also be, almost beyond our wildest dreams too. But like you say, I would agree that it makes sense to have this open source, because then the regular everyday person that wants to pull themselves up to the bootstraps, like the American thing we have here, and I would agree with that to some degree, then they have a chance, So then you're only limited by kind of your own ingenuity, your own efforts, and kind of your ethics. So it is possible. And if people want this option, of course, and if they behave responsibly and do things certain ways, then you're right. I don't think any of the stuff that I've talked about before really necessarily applies. So I will say that. Now, when it comes to the 31 planes of existence, I would say that the Theravada view might be just a little bit different. Yes, we want to have at least a human higher, right, to the Deva realm or Brahma realms. However, the goal, some would say, the formless realms, that it's almost a trap, because the lifespan is so long that if the goal is to get off the wheel of samsara, then you're just kind of there, and it's so amazing that you don't really have any challenges, like you're saying, to advance spiritually. That's the unique thing about the human realm, apparently, is that it's not too horrible like in a hell realm, where we can't just wait it out until that lifetime's over and see what happens next, or if it's too heavenly and too blissful, that there's really no incentive to do anything but enjoy pleasures, right? So that's the only caveat. I say, yes, we want at least a human birth or better, but also, yes, we want to progress to eventually, in that system, the goal is to then realize full awakening and stop the rounds of rebirth. Because to me, I mean, it would, a little spiritual aside here, nihilism's not the way. Obviously, we can both agree that's counterproductive, and that's one of the extremes, he said. But the other extreme is eternalism. And so, what if I want to get out? Well, too bad, you can't. It goes on forever and ever. No, but no, I seriously, I'm done now. No, so I can't. You can't. It goes on and on. So that's why he talked about avoiding the two extremes. So that's the only thing I wanted
Yeah, yeah,
to add to
absolutely.
that. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess, yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe there was a few other things, but I think that's about it. If you wanted to address anything else here, I think we ought to start wrapping up. And then when we do, tell people how they can get a hold of you, and kind of the ventures you have going on, the offerings, anything else you want to plug, and then take us out, on a final message here.
Yeah. So one thing is, like, I will say AI is a way for you to elevate yourself, your families, your communities, your nations. So rather than giving into the sensationalism or the scary headlines, try to understand it a little bit. Try to talk to somebody like myself who understands technology, humanity, economy, business, and things like that, so that you can at least be informed. Because once you have good information, then you can make your own decision. Secondly, in my offerings, what we do is most of the people, um, you know, are using AI to go outwards, meaning, okay, how do I, do more work that I'm already doing, but with a shorter amount of time and effort. That's the outward view of AI. What we do is help go inwards, find your consciousness, raise your self-awareness, understand how your subconscious mind works. Who is that inner child? Because we have a child inside of each one of us who's about 6 or 7 years old. And that's the most important relationship that we can have, um, in this world. And we seem to ignore that child all the time. So how do you get in touch with that child? How do you manifest things that light up your soul? This could be money, success, or it could be something else. It could be, finding your spiritual path, finding love of your life, or what have you. All these things are inside us, and we seem to have lost the way of kind of invoking that. But the way that we use technology and AI is to align that human spirit with AI. If anybody want to explore this, like I have we offer a free kind of sample. Think of like going to Costco and getting a little bite of a tasty snack. So we offer a sample which introduces you to the future version of you in the space-time continuum. And again, like, without going into too much detail, like, you know there are infinite versions of you that exist in this universe, and the version that you want, that calls you most, there's a distance of time and imagination between that and your current self. So we try to compress that, um, even through this free preview. But then if that makes you understand how this technology can fuse your humanity, and you can overcome that fear of transhumanism or whatever. And then that opens up a door to go deeper, deeper, deeper. Because I believe, as you said as well, human consciousness is an abyss. Like, there is no end to it. And even if we think about multiple planes of existence, as we go higher, there's always more growth, more growth, more growth. And so this is a doorway to start using our own humanity to go inwards. And it just is helping us do it easier, and seeing the results. And how to connect with me, find me on my website, Manuj Aggarwal, or my LinkedIn, or Google my name. I'm easy to find, even though my name spelling are difficult to type. But you can copy from here and just search for me on Google, and get in touch with me and let me know what is it that you want to achieve in your life. Because one of the favorite questions I ask when I meet somebody is, what will you like to achieve if there were no constraints, no risks, and no shortage of resources? Because that is the kind of life we are moving towards. And I want to accelerate people to realize those dreams without thinking that they have any constraints on any risks, because truly there are none.
It's a really good thought exercise. I tell people sometimes, what would you do if you had, money or resources weren't a problem? What would you do? And then, why aren't you doing that now? So I want to thank you again. And I would definitely like to echo, yes, going within. The answers are within. Don't seek them from without. Now, how we do that, how we get there, be responsible doing that. I'll just say that, just give that diplomatic answer here. So yeah, thanks so much. And I do want to spell your name just in case anybody's listening, just to the audio only version. And that's Manuj, and the last name Aggarwal. So thanks again so much for joining me, and
Thank
may
you.
all beings everywhere realize their highest truth, purpose, and happiness within and without for themselves, and all beings everywhere, and may all beings realize that we can be free. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.